fawr, Jason, bod da pawb, mae'n bleser I bod yma heddiw. It's my absolute pleasure to be with you here today. And we're here at this Beyond conference, and so I've been reflecting on what Beyond, I guess, means to me and my role as the first Future Generations Commissioner for Wales. In fact, the only Future Generations Commissioner in the world. That's sometimes a lonely place. I'm hoping that before long I might gain some friends in other countries, but I also think, based on what I know about some of the audience here, I can count you amongst Future Generations friends as well. I decided that it's sort of fitting at the Beyond conference this year is being hosted in Wales because the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act is exactly about that. It's about going beyond. What does the Act actually ask us to do? Well, first of all, it places this statutory duty on all of our key institutions, so our local authorities, our health institutions, organisations like the Arts Council, Public Health Wales, our Environment Agency, and significantly the Welsh Government itself and Welsh ministers themselves, to demonstrate how when they're taking decisions, they are meeting today's needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And beyond that, it sets out a vision for the Wales that we want to leave behind to future generations. And that vision was co-created with the people of Wales through a conversation, asking them what's the Wales you want to leave behind to your children and your grandchildren. So it sets out in law, not in a manifesto, not in some high-level policy document, but actually in statute, 7 long-term well-being goals of the Wales that we are striving to achieve. And those goals are interconnected, so they're about a prosperous Wales, which, interestingly, if I ask most people on the street what's their definition of prosperity, arguably if you ask Liz Truss where her focus on prosperity is, we probably shouldn't go there, but she would talk about GDP. Our definition in Wales is beyond GDP. There's another beyond, because we are connecting prosperity back to the well-being of people in Wales, and we are measuring our success, including our economic success, not just by profits made by the masses, but how we are generating the well-being of our citizens both now and in the future. It focused on creating a healthier Wales, a more resilient Wales, recognising the connection between nature, the planet, and the people who live on our planet. It recognises the role of culture and creativity with a goal for Wales of vibrant culture and thriving Welsh language. It says that we should be globally responsible. And when we look at all of those goals together, we can see that we are setting out a new, positive and progressive vision for the Wales that we want to create and leave behind to future generations. It also sets out 5 principles for decision making, that all of our institutions should plan for the long term, that they should prevent problems from occurring or from getting worse. They should think holistically across all of those goals, so they should integrate, they should collaborate across sectors, and they should involve citizens. The minister who took this legislation through our Senedd, our Welsh Parliament, described it as the Common Sense Act. Why is it that you have to legislate for common sense? Because sadly, you only have to look at your Twitter feed right at the moment to see that common sense isn't actually that common. So, the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act requires us to think in a completely different way. So beyond the now, beyond what is expected, beyond the ordinary, beyond the stale and the boring, beyond GDP. It's about these limitless possibilities, infinity and beyond, if you will, to quote Buzz Lightyear. And it's also about going beyond the norms, beyond stereotypes, beyond rich and poor. It's about going beyond short-term politics, setting out those long-term goals which don't change from one political cycle to the next. Often when we think about the long term, and I get this a lot when I talk to young people, what do you want the future to look like? And it's about flying cars, and it's about robots, and so on. And certainly there are a lot of countries and people in that space where the answer to all of our problems is tech. Last week I was in Dubai for the world's largest gathering of futurists. That is quite a scary and exciting gathering all in one, I can tell you. So I met there the Minister for Justice from Asgardia, which is a space state. which has been established. It has 1 million citizens. It has a Prime Minister, the Minister for Justice who was speaking. It holds elections and so on. I met a space architect. This woman is specialising in creating space in space. How will we live in space? Because countries and corporates are already developing these visions of humans living on space stations, largely actually to deal with the problem that we've created on Earth and our inability to deal with the climate catastrophe that is coming our way. A DNA library of all the species that are going extinct or have already been extinct, with scientists already working on using their DNA to recreate those species. So in one way you can kind of think, okay, that is massively beyond our kind of wildest dreams, isn't it? But also it's beyond where we should be. If you just dock that back to some of the kind of dystopian reality that comes from that, the fact that we might have to live on space stations because we've screwed the planet over so much, the fact that we're recreating species from their DNA because we've killed them off. There really is this kind of real challenge for us all, each and every one of us, to be thinking about how our actions today are affecting tomorrow. So going beyond, I think, might mean that we're in the metaverse in the next few years. It might be, as Dubai has an aspiration and a plan in place to get to Jupiter by 2117. It might be that tech is part of the answer to some of the challenges we face, but actually we must ask ourselves, what is the question? So the question for me is not just about anticipating the tech which will solve our problems, but the question is, what do we need to do now to secure the well-being of current and future generations? It means going beyond for every single person in Wales and every single person in the world. And it's not only us sat here in Wales who think that what we're doing is going beyond. And I just want to give you a flavour of some of the things that are changing as a result of our Future Generations Act. So record investment in tackling climate change, a new climate ministry established, massive reforms to our school curriculum to make them future, to enable us to deliver future-focused skills to our children and young people. More about that in a moment. A moratorium on building roads. Now, not universally popular, but actually if we're going to reduce our carbon emissions, we need some of these brave decisions. And across the world, other countries are looking to Wales and what we're doing to go beyond and are pretty impressed. A few months ago, I sat down in a conference in Stockholm with the director of New Zealand's Ministry for the Environment and told him what we were doing on transport in Wales, and he said, whoa, that is like far out. And it's also the teachers from England who tell me that they want to move to Wales because our curriculum in Wales is less Latin and more life. It's a curriculum which is focused on developing creative and enterprising citizens, a curriculum which is focused on developing healthy, active and confident learners. It's a curriculum which is focused on developing ethical and informed citizens. Now imagine if every single one of us in this audience had been through a school curriculum that harnessed and pursued relentlessly our creative talents, that actually helped us to develop a sense of not just being global consumers, but being global citizens as well. Would we be in some of the crises we're in at the moment? Arguably, I don't think that we would. So it is far out, I think, what we're doing in Wales. It is pushing the boundaries of what's deemed possible, and we are truly leading the way in terms of our approach to futures thinking and well-being. But today, Michael and I are here to talk about the importance of culture and creativity in the climate and nature emergencies. Now, the creative industries may not be the first place that you would look to solve the climate and nature emergency. I guess that's understandable. But what is unique to Wales is that culture is our key part of our definition of sustainability and sustainable development. So across the world, sustainable development is defined as social, economic and environmental well-being or sustainability. We have that additional pillar of culture. And it's a vital pillar because the power of culture, the power of connecting people back to their heritage, back to the land that they grew up in, back to these thoughts of how they want to protect those natural assets and resources, and how their own cultural heritage can be such a powerful lever in enabling us to do that. So the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act really does give us the ambition, permission and legal obligation to improve our social, environmental, economic and cultural well-being. And cultural well-being is key to our way of thinking and is considered equally important to tackling the challenges of life on Earth. And the Act also tells us to look outside of the box and connect with what I call the unusual suspects. Now, I imagine also that many of you in this audience have been doing a lot of the things that I've been describing here, but have probably been knocking the door of governments, of public services, of those people who you think you can help to deliver their public services, help to connect better with communities, help to tell the stories that need to be told, and often you're probably knocking against a door which is firmly closed, because our public services and public policy, I don't think, have recognised sufficiently the power and the lever that culture and creativity brings. But here in Wales, that is changing as a result of our Future Generations Act and as a result of the power and the commitment of the sector here. So we have in our public services creatives in residence. In Swansea Bay Health Board, 6 creatives in residence who were based in the estates department, looking at what the hospital and health estate might look like. In the, what would have been called the complaints department, using the power of storytelling to connect with people who might have had a bad experience in the healthcare system as part of a therapeutic approach to telling their stories, which also has the added benefit of landing much more effectively with those who need to hear that story. In the primary care department, in the mental health department. So what we're seeing here is culture, creativity being a core part of public service delivery. And that's what I would like to see every agency in Wales secure. But to hone in on the climate and nature emergencies, if we're going to make our creative industries truly sustainable in the global context we find ourselves in, we do need to make big shifts in the way that we make decisions. So industry should be able to demonstrate their contribution to environmental sustainability, for example, ensuring events are low carbon, zero waste, and offering equal opportunities for all, procuring locally and employing local people. There are new expectations from our consumers who are demanding a sustainable experience at our cultural events. And, you know, to a large degree, not just in that sphere, but across the board, our future generations are calling us out. They're calling out our consumerist behaviour, our throwaway culture, and they're demanding something different. And we must all respond to that, not just because that makes business sense in terms of responding to consumer demand, but because it makes business sense in terms of responding to securing the future of our planet. So we're seeing some brilliant practice here in Wales, the Eisteddfod's new sustainability strategy, which sees the Eisteddfod pioneering sustainable event practices, achieving net zero emissions and zero waste by 2025, the Hay Festival's Green Print Toolkit for improving festival sustainability, just 2 examples there. And our government's entire event strategy is now being aligned with our 7 wellbeing goals as well. But the role of creative industries is not purely one of reducing their carbon footprint. The creative industries have an incredibly important role in the movement for change, and our creatives across the world are our storytellers, our poets, our playwrights, the people among us who have an innate ability to spread messages and connect with our communities. And I recognised early on in my role, I'm just coming to the end of my term now, having done a 7-year term, but I recognised early on that I have particular powers to audit the government and to hold them to account, and I could do all of the audits in the world, but institutions would always be able to tick boxes and jump through hoops and say the right words in their documents. But actually, to develop a more sustainable and meaningful change, we need the voices of our grassroots communities. We need to build a movement around what we're trying to achieve here in Wales, and we need to harness the power of culture and creativity to do that. That's why we must continue to tell the stories of the people, those with lived experiences of the issues here in Wales and around the world, to bring everyone on this journey to well-being for current and future generations with us. So I think as we move beyond the pandemic, although who knows what's happening with that at the moment, we can rejoice to a certain degree at the return of cultural and creative events, as we should, but we also can't pretend that everything is back to normal. Doing this will mean that the impact of the pandemic will be perpetuated, and it may seem like the pandemic is over, but of course its effects are long-lasting, and we have more hurdles to overcome now: the impact of Brexit, the cost of living crisis, to name just a few. And a couple of years ago, I was invited to attend the Green Man Festival, which was a brilliant event, a huge focus on sustainability, but their costs have gone up by almost 35% since 2016, with real struggles around sourcing goods and services. That means that ticket prices have gone up by 20%. This is just one festival, but it's happening to cultural events all around Wales and all around the world. And these rising costs have a much wider impact than having to fork out a bit of extra money to see Ed Sheeran. This is an inequalities issue. It's an access to culture and heritage and language issue. It's a health issue. And of course, it's an environmental issue. So we know that participating in arts, sports and culture and creating strong communities around events is hugely beneficial for our mental and physical health. And there's some really interesting data from the World Health Organization which looks at the differences in the life expectancy gap. So where we are here in Cardiff, just about 3 miles to the north and then 3 miles to the south, there's between a 15 and 20-year difference in life expectancy. And the reasons for those differences, according to the World Health Organization, won't surprise you to know about 35% is about income security, if you live in poverty and so on, 29% about your living conditions, the quality of your environment, your housing, and so on. 19%, however, is about social and human capital. Whether you live in a place where there is a sense of community, what are the quality of your relationships? Do you have a sense of agency in that community? And actually, I believe that the power of culture in bringing those communities together has some real hard hitting metrics and data around actually affecting those differences in life expectancy. So when we think, or sometimes people say, that culture, arts, the soft and fluffy, nice to have, actually go back to that hard data from the World Health Organization, 19% of what makes a difference to life expectancy is about social interaction, which is the bread and butter of what you are in. So I do believe that Wales has a brilliant story to tell. We are not perfect, but what we're trying to do is incredibly brave. We are trying to ensure that all of our decisions are taken in the long term. We are trying to ensure that all of our decisions are holistic. We are trying to harness the power of a number of different sectors to deliver policy and services in Wales in a completely different way. And so to me, beyond really means being brave in the pursuit of change, which is what we're trying to do here in Wales, because that's what will take us beyond and ensure that there is indeed a beyond for the next generation. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr.